I'm Jessica.
Hey, I'm Christeena.
And you're watching Game of Tomes. Today we will be discussing A Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. If you're watching this video, presumably you have read this book and you now want to discuss it, because that's exactly what we're going to do. Spoiler warning. So, if you have not read this book before, maybe you should check out our review video instead. Link below. We should say that we did a read-along for this book with Andrea from the Overstuffed Bookcase, so check out her channel down below. We like her a lot. We had a lot of really excellent discussion because of this book, and we thought it amazing, the parallels between the book and what's going on in real life to the events of this book. And man, we talked about feminism, policing other women's bodies, terrorism, politics, other stuff, personal things. Everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, everything. We think this book is really important, also really horrifying, and everyone should read it. And I don't know, maybe you agree. It's a discussion. So, Thanks.
So,
okay.
And I was actually really surprised, and I know we boxed and talked about this with Andrea as well, was that the president and Congress all getting gunned down was blamed on Islamic extremists.
Yeah.
And this book was published in '85!
Mm-hmm. And it's just like weird to hear about Islamic extremism existing like before 9/11, and of course it did.
Yeah. Because
things had to build up to get to that point.
Right.
But that was our first encounter with Islamic extremist terrorism.
I was like 10.
Yeah. It was 5th grade?
Yeah.
Who do you have for 5th grade? Maxim?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Okay. So yeah, our teacher heard about it, and she took us to the library. Our class was the only one in the library. Do you remember this?
I remember going to the library.
Yeah.
I remember like the librarian and everybody sitting around crying and watching the TV.
Mm-hmm. And we didn't really understand that there were people inside that building.
No.
Or that building even existed.
No. I mean, like, I didn't. I was 10.
Yeah.
You know?
So,
it was, really, that was definitely the first time we ever heard of, like, terrorism or Islamic extremists, which I didn't even understand after that for a little bit. I didn't really understand that it was like Islamic extremists and like religion and et cetera, you know, until I was a little bit older, and I'm like, oh, okay. But it was crazy to think
that in 85,
that was still a thing. I mean, it had that it was a thing, you know, and it had to have been, because it was crazy. And then they basically put everybody on pause and was like, we're going to do another election. Everything's cool. Just, you know, keep doing what you're doing. And at this time already, I'm going to assume they had all their money and everything onto the big old computer banks or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was around the time that people started, like, carrying around credit cards, right?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yes, because she would have to go to... But she didn't have a credit card. She would, like, tell them her ID number, and they would enter it on the computer, and it would just automatically take it out of the bank. Because that was, like, when she was going to the corner market, because she was, like, she still had a job.
But that's, like, kind of similar to, like, writing a check or something. That her money's in an account.
Yeah, yeah. But, like, then shit just goes down.
Yeah, she can't use her card anymore. And
the woman's not at, like, the corner stand that she usually
all women lose their job.
And then, like, but they don't even say anything. They're just like, your number's not valid.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like, she's like, oh, you know, I'll probably have to call whatever, get through customer service. And it's like, yeah, right, like, that probably would happen, you know. And then she can get through, and then she's fired.
Yeah. Yeah, she's fired. Everybody else is fired. And then she gets home, and she tells Luke about it, or Luke knows.
Yeah, he said he heard it on the radio on the way home.
And it was like, to her, it didn't seem like he understood the severity of what was going on. He was like, you know, honey, it'll be alright. And he had her best interests at heart, we feel. But that night, he just, like, she felt like maybe he was a little, like,
enjoying it.
Like he was just a little bit above her because he had all the money now.
Like,
and
she has to ask him for anything.
And she never got the chance to ask him if that's how he was feeling. And that was really creepy. And
I had to take a break after reading that chapter because it was just like, to me, I don't work, but I mean, I'm stay-at-home mom, but just to have the sheer option to, you know, and the choice, it was just like, I really started like putting myself in that kind of position and how like the helplessness.
Yeah.
And just like, I'm utterly useless now. You know what I mean? Like the feeling of it, I was like,
so we made the parallel between what her husband Luke was saying and how people of a higher privilege than other, like say minorities, kind of react to them being discriminated against. Like, oh, just calm down.
It's not that bad. It'll be okay.
It'll be okay. Yeah. Like even if they have good intentions, like we want to help you, but like you're not doing anything to help yourself, sort of thing. Oh, I don't know. It just
it's not a big deal because it's not happening to them.
Yeah.
And that's how it kind of seemed with Luke, is that he was like, whatever, you know, because it's not him.
He's like, we'll get through this, you know, and it's
like,
and she's over here like panicking, like we need to leave the country, and he's just like, you know, it'll be okay, don't worry, like we'll figure it out, and like,
yeah,
it was just hard.
Because I was like really, really liking Luke, and then that whole thing came up.
But I mean, eventually they do decide to leave the country.
Yeah. I mean, they were. I'm not saying he's a bad guy or nothing. Not at all. Yeah. I just mean like, you know, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Like that's stuff that like I would have never thought about. I mean, if I was in that situation, yeah. But I mean, like while writing about like a book, I would have never thought of like putting that in there. You know, and her questioning like, so tell me, Luke, was I right? You know, and it's just like. There's just so many little like things in it that was just.
It was very
really, really good.
It's like weirdly subtle, but
yeah,
like you pick up on the things that.
Like little by little, you just collect this information of like, yeah. Speaking of like, they finally go to flee, and then, which, I'm kind of just like, they panicked because a guy picked up a phone. They panicked and was like, something's gone wrong. But, like, what if it hadn't up? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But that's the chance that they took, and so they escaped, and her daughter was taken from her.
And presumably Luke lost his life.
Yeah.
We don't know that.
You never find out.
And I really wanted her to be reunited with her daughter.
Me too.
And I can only assume that they weren't.
So then the whole Handmaid thing happens, and she goes with the commander, and at first I was like, he's just like a weird old guy, whatever, and then he's like, play some Scrabble, and I was like, maybe he's cool, you know, like maybe he's alright. No.
Not really.
No.
Him taking her to the brothel thing.
Yeah, and it just really creeped me out when she was talking about like putting the lotion on her hands, and he would just like watch her read, you know, and I'm just like, ugh.
It was just giving you the creepies.
Yeah, like, it's kind of like what Moira.
Yeah.
Moira. It's kind of like what she said to her. I think it was her, about how they get off and like just seeing them like letting them do something, like toying with them, you know, and I feel like that's what he was,
illegal.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what he was doing to her.
For sure.
You know, like, oh sure, like here's a magazine from like the 70s, whatever.
And speaking of that brothel, it made me so sad for Moira. I just wanted her to be able to get out, and then she was there, and she's like, you know, it's not as bad as the other place because they let them do things that normally they wouldn't have gotten to do, like vices.
Well, they could smoke cigarettes and get black market stuff.
And she was just like, she told her, you know, you should come over here. It's better. But at the same time, she's like, we probably won't be here for another 5 years until we get put into the unwomen colony. And it's like, this is what you're trying to get her to go to. It was like her spirit was broken. And she's just like, I'm just going to make the most of it right now.
Yeah. Like, she just gave up, like, F it.
I mean, she tried to escape twice, 3 times.
Yeah.
So, poor Moira.
I liked her a lot. I really, really wanted her to make it, and then for, like, Offred and her to get connected into, like, a secret rebellion, you know.
Yeah, well, no. Samira Wiley from, who plays Poussey in Orange is the New Black, is going to be Moira, and we think that's a really great
I
cast.
think that's really cool, which brought up the topic of, they don't ever mention anything about color or race in this book at all.
They don't. And not until the epilogue, where they say that the Caucasians are the ones that are having trouble reproducing. So you can only assume that it's like a colony full of white people where she's staying. Samira Wiley is a black woman, and I'm glad that they just, hopefully they just chose to ignore that whole thing and diversify the cast.
Yeah.
And Samira Wiley is really an excellent actress.
I think so too, yeah. I really, really like her.
So I think they made a great cast for her.
Yeah.
Also, Moira in the book is a lesbian.
Yeah.
Wiley is a lesbian in real life. This is only the second role I've seen her do, both of which were lesbian roles, and I think it's...
Didn't you say... Oh, no, that was the girl from SNL.
Oh, yeah. I think it was Kate McKinnon who was talking about...
She's hilarious.
Yeah, from SNL.
I love her.
She's fantastic. I saw an interview with her, and she was talking about how she doesn't really want to play a straight woman in any of the movies. She's done some big blockbuster movies now.
Yeah. She did Ghostbusters.
Yeah. And I didn't see that. Did you see that?
I own it. You can borrow it.
Oh.
Yeah. It's funny.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Is she a lesbian, or does she...
I'm pretty... They don't really go into detail, but I'm pretty sure she's a lesbian.
Okay. Well,
they just kind of, like, don't really...
talk about her sexuality.
Mm-mm.
Well, she said that she doesn't want to play a straight woman in movies, and I think that's great. I mean, women don't have to pretend to be gay in movies if they don't want to, and she shouldn't have to pretend to be straight if she doesn't want to.
That's what I like that she said.
Yeah.
I really respect that. I mean,
yeah. And so
it's her choice. It should be her choice. Whatever she wants to do, period.
Yeah. And so I hope that Samira Wiley gets to do what she wants to do, and in that aspect as well. Okay. Oh. Yeah. What?
The ceremony?
Oh my gosh, the ceremony.
So horrible. It's not what I thought it was going to be, of them two doing their thing.
Yeah, we thought
in a separate room.
Yeah, that's what we thought was going to happen. And then, no, she's lying on top of the wife, and he's doing his thing.
And she's, like, holding her hands, and I remember, like, she said that, like, the wife was squeezing, like, she was the one who was, you know, and it's just, like, awful.
Why? Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be anybody in that situation.
And very, like, clinical, like, just, like, seed, and then he goes.
Yeah, like, literally, like, she's fully dressed, and then he's, like, fully dressed, and except for just the vital parts, and, like, that's it. Yeah, super awkward. The participation was very disturbing.
It was so disturbing. And sad that it was, like, these men who
were actually rebels.
And they're like, oh, he raped a girl, and
it was one of you, like, yeah.
It was like, but I'm not going to go into the gory details, but the baby was lost, and they just, like, all of their pent-up rage and aggression.
Man.
And then her
walking friend.
She, like, kicks him in the head, and she's like...
I was really shocked, too.
Yeah.
When I read it, I was like, what?
And then she's like, I knocked him out. I did him a favor.
Yeah, which is, yeah.
Because after that, they, like, ripped off his penis or something and, like, beat him up.
I remember, but it was... They had to, like... They didn't stop when they blew the whistle for them to stop. They had to, like... Didn't they have to... Like, okay, alright, you know? Like...
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, that was really, really brutal, and, I mean, like... I don't mean this as, like, a compliment, but it's a very smart way to keep the rebellion down, you know? By, like... Oh, but they did this or they did that, and then, like... Throw them up on the wall with... what they did. Like, the doctor who used to be a doctor who provided abortions got hanged.
Yeah.
Because now it was illegal. And then, like, gender crimes of, like, being lesbian or being homosexual or anything like that was just, like, everything. And just leave it there for people to walk by. And, like, as a reminder, her walking buddy, I'm really glad ended up being part of the rebellion. And... was really sad that she hung herself.
Yeah. And especially if that black van had been her, not her death, but as in our protagonist's case, the Underground Railroad.
Yeah.
And they call it like the female
road or something. I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah. Basically the.
See, and that's what I want to know, because then like it came to pick up Offred, and then it turns out that it wasn't the Eye after all, but part of the Underground, and it makes me wonder, like, what if it wasn't meant that for her? But I mean, like, Offred did make the point of saying that, like, oh, she sacrificed herself for like everybody else, because like she knew that she would talk one way or another. She would talk, so she basically saved all the rest of us, that she knows or whatever, which is a good point. But it just makes it really tragic still. Nick was a super big surprise.
Yeah, I feel like they grew to love each other.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
couldn't risk to verbally
say that.
Or even show any emotion, really.
No, whenever they were around each other. And, I mean, it could never go... I mean, it was doomed to fail.
Yeah. They knew that, too, though.
Yeah.
And then her torturing herself over, like, if Luke was still alive or not, and if it would be, like, cheating on him or this or that, it was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
It was really, really hard.
I think he would have wanted her to be happy.
Yeah,
and if she found someone, I feel like...
I don't think he would have been mad about it, or, like, how could you blame someone in that situation?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just like she said, the desire to be touched in, like, a loving way.
Yeah.
Just even, like, the caress of a cheek or something, like, yeah, that would... Harsh. I did also think, like, how they talked about women controlling women and kind of, like, using them against themselves, like, with the ants and everything. I was like...
Mm-hmm. And how the wives were so over what the midwives were doing. And what did they say about that? It was like...
They were what?
They were doing it so that these women wouldn't feel completely helpless, like they had a job to do, and so like their job was to police other women, basically.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't remember how they put it, but it's like so they wouldn't feel like useless or something like that. And it was
just another way to keep them down, really.
Yeah, and
that's a great point that I hadn't even thought about before, but like that's why women need to stick together.
Yeah. There was just cultivating of tearing each other down and then having power over each other. And in that environment where power is like gold, it's like everybody jumps at the opportunity. Oh, I'll be an ant and, punish other women and tell them that, oh, it's your fault for being gang raped. That part.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't even think of that until just now, but that part was just brutal.
And people get told that in real life. People feel guilty about being raped because other people will say you deserved it,
or you begged for it, or you asked for it by the way you dressed,
or the way you were acting.
Yeah,
like flirting with someone does not mean that you want to be.
It doesn't give them the right to touch you or do anything to you at all without your consent.
No, it doesn't.
Period. There's nothing that you do to somebody that gives them the right to do that to you without consent at all, at any point, at any time. And that was so brutal. And her like just crying, and they were just like, cry baby, cry. I'm like, it's giving me chills. It's just, what a way to break a person. Like, no wonder she ended up switching off and just losing her mind. I don't blame her.
No.
It's just, ugh.
Yeah, okay, let's, do we have anything else?
The epilogue, I think, is that
Okay, yeah. So let's talk about the epilogue really quick.
Super weird.
Yeah, it was really weird. I did like the fact that we found out that it was about...
a couple of things. Well, you did find out that she lived, first of all, that it wasn't the Eye, because that was left up, and I was like...
Yeah, if it had ended there, I would have been like, is the book missing a few pages? Like, that would have been really weird. So to find out that it was actually her path to safety and not her death, that was great. Or that, she wasn't being taken to a colony.
Weird that it was a recording.
Yeah, I like that part too. That's fine.
Yeah.
And even the whole setup, the fact that people were now studying this, but I still felt like there was a lot of things left unanswered about how that was that Gilead was knocked down.
Yeah.
And how I don't know if America has been restored, but it appears to be that there's now a new empire, whatever that is.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, I really would have liked more about how.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, like, I respect it, and it's fine, because
Yeah.
it gives you a lot of freedom as the reader to, you know, try and think of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, this book is all about, obviously, like, gets you to think about a lot of stuff. And that was just another thing for you to, like, think about and consider, like, oh, it probably took forever, you know, trying to topple this thing, blah, 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 whatever. I did not really care for it, though. I'm really glad that we got the answers.
Yeah.
But
it was really dry, and, like,
the setup of it and stuff,
mm-hmm.
and it was just kind of like
it felt disjointed.
Yeah. I mean, it was, overall, I love the book. It's definitely one of my, like, all-time favorites. Absolutely one of my all-time favorites now. Like, I love it. And it is one that, like, I could totally reread and reread and reread and just never get tired of it, because I would just be like, this book is crazy!
I don't feel that passionately about it. I feel like everyone should read it, and I feel like I got the information that I needed out of it. But, like, I did not, like, love it while I was reading it. Like, I mean, I loved it.
Yeah, I understand.
I didn't, like, it wasn't the sort of thing that I just want to read all the time. I don't know. Does that make sense? I thought it was excellent, and I think everyone should read it.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that we did. I'm super glad that we read it, and it's crazy the time that we read it during.
Yeah.
So
over inauguration, and it was just like we had a lot of politics to talk about.
Yeah.
When we voxed during our read along.
We had fantastic conversations. So I mean, obviously, if you're watching this, you have read it. If you want to talk about it with us, talk about it with us.
Please
it brought
do.
up so many good topics, and
Yeah,
we love discussing it.
Remember, when you play the game of tomes,
you read or you die.
Come be our friends. I'm Jess Game of Tomes on Twitter.
And I'm Christeena, GOT.
And we hope you're reading a great book. Bye.
Bye. Making a list, checking it twice. Gonna find out who's naughty or nice.
Santa Claus is coming.
I was trying to think, I was gonna say, Game of Tomes is coming.
Nice.
To you! What?
I said book 2. To you.
Okay.
Do you like that?
Yeah.
Whatever you were having. You're like Moira.
Moira.
Moira? It's Moira.
Moira.
You're making it started.
Moira? Moira?
Moira?
I woke up at 8 o'clock this morning and I was like, Jessica,